Hey guys, we're back to the May 2025 paper 2, and this was the first question in the May's AISL paper. And I think generally the first question is very doable, but you will probably see this question gets a little weird as we move on. Okay, let's look at part A. Alright, it says we need to find the value of k. Alright, which is basically the bar chart when the number of goals in the game is 3. So if we look at this particular bar chart, obviously it goes up to 5, so k has to be 5. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward, just kind of reading off the bar chart. And it says that Paul knows that the mean number of goals per game scored during the tournament was 2.2. So write down an equation for the mean in terms of p. So let's try to do some kind of interpretation of this table. What it means for the first one is there's going to be 3 games with 0 goals, 11 games with 1 goal, 7 games with 2 goals. So first we need to find out what is the total number of goals. Alright, so to find the total goals, we need to take 0 multiplied by 3, which obviously still gives me 0. Then 1 times 11, because there are 11 games with 1 goal each, so you got to take 1 times 11. Then 2 times 7, and we do it the same thing for the rest of the rows. 3 times k, 4 times p, and 5 times 1, which is just 5. Okay, if we simplify this, you're going to get 11 plus 14 plus 3k plus 4p plus 5. Okay, and if we simplify this, you're going to get 25, 30 plus 3k plus 4p. Okay, so this will be the total number of goals, and if you want to find the mean, then we have to divide the total number of goals by the total number of games, right? So the total number of games is just going to be the sum of all these numbers. This is 5. All right, keep p as p and plus 1. So if we take 30 plus 3k plus 4p, we're going to divide by the total number of games. It's just adding all the frequency up. So that should give me 3 plus 11 is 14, plus 7 is 21, plus 5 is 26, plus 1 is 27, so it's 27 plus p. So this will be b part 1. Okay, and finally we're going to do the next part, which is finding the value of p. Now we know that this is equal to 2.2. You got a few options here. You could either use a numeric solver, or you could just solve this algebraically in a way. Okay, yeah, and I'm just going to try to solve this algebraically. Of course, you could use the numeric solver if that kind of works out for you. Okay, so I'm just going to erase this, kind of run out of space. Then we're going to find out the value of p. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply both sides by 27 plus p, so that we could get rid of the denominator. So you're going to get 30 plus 3k. We do know what is k, which is 5, so I'm going to replace k with 5, plus 4p equal to 2.2 multiplied by 27 plus p. So this is going to give me 45 plus 4p equal to 4.4. Oh, sorry, 27 times 2.2. What is 27 times 2.2? 27 times 2.2, that's 59.4 plus 2.2p. Okay, so you're going to put all the p's to one side, and I'm going to put all the numbers to the other side. So I'm going to get 1.8p equal to 14.4, and p is going to be 14.4 divided by 1.8, and I believe this is going to give me 8. So p is going to be 8 in this case. So you could either try to solve this with an algebraic approach, or you could just use a numeric solver to get the answer for p. Okay, all right, let's move on. The next part of the question is basically a box plot. All right, it's basically comparing the goals in 2025 with 2024. So in part C, it says state 2 observations that supports poll conclusion using any of the terms here, which is range, symmetry, median, and interquartile range. So let's just try to find out some of the values from the 2025 tournament. It's pretty obvious that the interquartile range is just basically taking the upper quartile, subtract the lower quartile. So it's 4 minus 1, which gives me 3. Now the median in this case would be 2. The range would just be 9 subtract 0, because you're taking the maximum value, subtract the minimum value. So I'm just going to use this and compare this to the previous part as well. Okay. Alright, let me just tidy this up for a little while. So we do know that K was 5 and P would be 8. Okay. So to find the median, if we add up the numbers of the frequency, so 3 plus 11 is 14, plus 7 is 21, plus 5 is 26, plus 8 is 34, plus 1 is 35. So we got a sum of 35. So we're looking for, if you have 35 games, then we're looking at the middle position. So what is that middle game? Alright, so if you take 35 plus 1, divide by 2, that's going to give the 18 game, that's going to give you the median. So let's look at this. The first 3 games gives you 0 goal. The next 11 games gives only 1 goal. So if you add up these two, it hasn't really reached 18, isn't it? But we know that the next 7 games is going to have 2 goals, and obviously you're going to reach the 18 game by the time you get 2 goals. So we know that the median is 2. Now, then we do the same thing again, which is to find the lower quartile. Now, if this is the median, if 2 is the median, then it's quite obvious that the lower quartile has to be 1. Okay? And the same thing again is that we know that the 18th position is going to give me the median. So if we want to find the upper quartile, what we could do is basically finding the median of the median again. So we're looking at from the 19th game to the 35th game. And if you find the midpoint between the 19th game and the 35th game, that's going to give you like the 27th game. So if you add up, like 3 plus 11 is 14, plus 7 is 21, plus 5 is 26. Now we know that the upper quartile is basically going to be 4 as well. But then again, you know what, guys? You can actually work this out by using the calculator. Okay. Now, if this is too much for you to take, okay, like not being able to identify what is the lower quartile and the upper quartile, I'll teach you a way to do this. Now, we can actually put all these numbers onto the GDC. Okay, so I'll show you how this could be done. And we'll find the lower quartile and the upper quartile. That will save you a lot of time actually as well, okay, on hindsight. So I'll go to stat. I'll put all the values here. So it'll be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, then we go to L2 and we put 3, 11, which is the frequency, okay, under L2. K was 5, P was 8, and the last one was 1. So if we want to go to stat, we go to calc, we want to go to one variable stats, okay. So if you look at list, which is L1, now your frequency list in this case, you should be putting L2. Oops, what's wrong? Valid frequency list length. Go back to this again. Oh, I'm missing a value here. I thought I put a 1 here. Okay, but anyway, let's go back to this. Go back to calc. Choose option 1. Then this will be second L2. There we go. So you probably realize that your Q1, which is the lower quartile, is 1. Q3, which is the upper quartile, happens to be 4. So I am right, okay, in calculating. So the median, the lower quartile, and the upper quartile. So to find the IQR, is basically taking 4 subtract 1, which gives me 3. Now we realize that these two numbers actually are pretty much the same as what we had in 2025. Okay, now if you look at the range, if we take the highest number of goals and the lowest number of goals, the range is actually 5 subtract 0, which gives me 5. And this is not the same as the range of 9, but we know that the interquartile range and the median are the same. So I will probably use the median and the interquartile range because they both have the same values. Okay, so that kind of shows that Paul's conclusion is correct because it says that the distribution of goals is consistent between the two tournaments because the IQR and the median are the same in both 2024 and 25. Okay, so same in 2024 and 2025. Okay. All right, let's look at the next question. The next few parts, it says for that Paul plans to watch the games from the 2024 tournament in a random order. He will watch each game once. All right, I'm sorry for the noise behind. I'm actually doing my laundry. Okay, so but anyway, let's get back to this question. He says that for the first game he watches, defines event F as scoring either 0 goals or exactly 1 goal. Now remember, keywords for the first game, scoring either 0 or exactly 1. So it says write down the events that are equivalent to F prime, which is basically the complement of F. So basically we're looking at in the first game whether the games for the first game that he watches, it must obviously not be either 0 goals and it can't be exactly 1 goal. Okay, so let's look at the events that we have in the descriptions and see which one really kind of fulfills some of the criteria for the complement of F. Now scoring exactly 2 goals, that's obviously not in that criteria that we have in A. Okay, scoring either 0 goals or exactly 1 goal. Alright, so it says write down the events that are equivalent to F prime. But if you see scoring exactly 2 goals in this game, it does kind of look it does look like an F complement, isn't it? But the thing is, if you look at this question, again, because it says in the 2024 tournament, right? Now the 2024 tournament, again, this is a very, very tricky question, and it's being highlighted for a reason as well. Okay, because it's related to the first part of the question, because in the 2024 table, you have goals that scored from 0 to 5. Now, if you look at event A, it says that scoring exactly 2 goals. Now, it does on the first side, it does look like it's a complement, but then again, but if you think about this as well, it does not actually include 3 goals, 4 goals, or 5 goals in this case. So it seems like this is more like a subset of F. So A would be a subset of F rather than an A complement, because it does not consist of 3 goals, 4 goals, and 5 goals. Okay, so for event A, it's more like a subset of F. Okay, so this one very, very tricky. Now in part B, it says scoring more than 1 goal in the game, so it could be 2 goals, 3 goals, 4 goals, or 5 goals. So obviously this works out to be F complement. Okay, part C, scoring at least 2 goals in the game, which is basically the same thing as part B. So it's be 2 goals and above, so it's 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this would be F complement as well. Now in part D, it says scoring either 0 goal and exactly 1 goal in all games. So I think the word all games pretty much rule this out. So this is definitely not the F complement. Alright, so this is not equivalent. And part E, in any game. So again, we can actually kind of rule this out as well. So narrowing down the options, I think we're only left with B and C, which is the equivalent to F complement. Alright, now we're going to look at part E. So part D is done. We're going to look at part E, which says if exactly 1 goal was scored in the first game that Paul watches, write down the probability that exactly 1 goal was scored in the second game he watches. So this kind of looks like a conditional probability question. So I'm going to write this down. This is a conditional probability question. Okay, now it says that 1 goal was scored in the first game. So we're going to look at the games that has 1 goal. So there are 11 games that has 1 goal in it. And so we know that in the first game that he watches, so let's just write down all the information first, part E. So there are 11 games with one goal. Okay, now it says that find the probability that exactly one goal was scored in the second game that he watches. So if he watched the first game, which has one goal, that means I'm down to only 10 games. And the probability, no, sorry, if we got 11 games with one goal, so basically there will be 10 games left in this case. So I'm just going to write this down, the probability of one goal in the second game, given that one goal is scored in the first game. Okay, now this one can be done in two ways. Now, but because it's only a 2 marks question, so generally this question should not take too much time to complete this question. Of course, you could use the conditional probability formula that actually works as well, but I'll show you both ways. Okay, so anyway, we got 11 games in one go, right? So that means that after watching the first game, I'm left with only 10 games with which has a goal scored in it. But in total, we actually have like 34. We have 35 games. But after he watched the first game, you're down to 34 games as well. So basically, generally, if I have 10 games with one goal after watching the first game, and I will divide this by 34, that's actually going to give me 5/17. So that's by using logical sense, right? I mean, because both of the games is scored with one goal, so we can just simply write the probability as 10 out of 34, which is 5/17 for this one. But again, if you think that using the formula is better for you, it can be done as well. Let me just show you how this works. So we know that the probability, now we know that if you have one goal in the second game, given that you score one goal in the first game, so basically we're trying to find in the numerator one goal. Okay, I'll probably have to do this first. Now let's do a quick recap. I'm gonna do it here. This was the formula given in your formula booklet, which is A intersect B over probability of B. Okay, so if we use the formula to solve this question, what we're trying to do is we're trying to find the probability where you score one game in the second game and you score one game in the first game. Now, the probability that you score one goal in the first game is obviously 11 because you got 11 games out of 35. Okay, so I'll take 11 out of 35. Then I will multiply this by 10 divided by 34. Okay, because after watching the first game, I'm left with one game less, and I'm also left with one game less for the first goal scored. And I'm going to divide this whole thing by the denominator, which is the probability of B. So you can treat this like A and you treat this like B. So what is the probability that you score one goal in the first game? Which is obviously just simply 11 out of 35, isn't it? Okay, so again, you realize that these two fractions cancel out each other. I'm actually left with 10 over 34, which is the same thing as 5/17. Okay, which is actually the same thing, all right? But I don't think this question was meant to be using the formula. That's why it's only worth 2 marks. But if you want to use the formula, it's fine. But the thing is, you need to know that it's a conditional probability question in the first place. Okay, all right, so that's really for part E, okay? So the key word is if exactly one game was scored. It's like given that one goal was scored in the first game, what is the probability that one goal was scored in the second game? So this is a classic conditional probability question. Okay, now we're going to look at part F. Okay, so the part E was 5/17. And we're going to look at part F. Okay, let me just write down the answer here. So it's 5/17. Now it says calculate the probabilities that 5 goals were scored in the first game that Paul watches and 0 games were scored in the second game he watches. Okay, so again, this is a relatively straightforward question. So we could just say 5 goals were scored in the first game. So what is the probability that you get the first game to be scored with 5 goals? Alright, so 5 goals, obviously you have only one game. So obviously the probability of the first game would be 1/35. So that would be the probability of 5 goals scored in the first game. So that's 1/35. And 0 goals were scored in the second game. Alright, so there were 3 games with 0 goals. So I'm going to multiply this by 3/34. Again, because if you watch one game, you are left with 34 games to watch for the second one. So if you simply multiply the two probabilities together, so you should be getting 3/35 times 34. That is 1,190. Okay, so that would be part F in this case, which is a 4 marks question. I think it's a generous question, I would say. Yeah, so this is pretty much it for question 1. Quite a nice question, I would say. Very doable. But I think part D is the strange question. I think that's gonna I don't think students are gonna like this question generally for part D, part E, and part F. But I think E and F is very doable as well. Okay, so I hope you like this video. Again, the rest of the questions that I have for paper 2, I'll show that in my next few videos. Alright, thank you for watching and subscribe as always. Goodbye.